Action-adventure, science fiction, and historical fiction. He created the long-running Wingman series with 1 million copies sold. The books of the series was published by, the 22nd book in the series was published by Speaking Volumes Media this past June and praised by Publishers Weekly. He's also written 3 nonfiction books, UFOs in Wartime, Beyond Area 51, and Mack Maloney's Haunted Universe. He also wrote the popular Chopper Ops series, Berkeley Books, the Super Hawk series, St. Martin's Press, and the Pirate Hunters series, Tor Books. Mack has also done novelizations for films, as in The Need for Speed, DreamWorks, and television, Jag, Cold Steel, as well as for the Hercules and Xena TV shows. He was a columnist for Turner Broadcasting, TrueTV.com, Conspiratorium website, 2012 to 15. Mack Maloney's Military X-Files is hosted by Mack Maloney, with co-host Juan and Commander Copra. The show emphasizes the U.S. military's involvement in the paranormal, and weekly topics range from the famous military encounters with UFOs to the Pentagon's psychic studies to haunted forts, airplanes, ships, and battlefields. Regular contributors include national correspondents Switchblade Steve Ward on classic UFO sightings and Raven on the paranormal. Mack has also worked as a correspondent to the U.S. government on the terrorist program and is a member of the rock band Sky Club. Mack is a native of Dorchester, Massachusetts, and a graduate of Emerson College, and please welcome him and his colleagues as our final speakers of this great conference.
Thank you, Brother Peter. We appreciate everyone coming to see us tonight and this afternoon. And what we're going to do is we do a radio show podcast, and we just figured tonight we would just do the show. So if you can bear with us during the breaks and different stuff that we do, we'd appreciate that. So let me just introduce, let me start the show. Let me start the show, right? Okay, here we go. Are we ready? Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Mack Maloney's Military X-Files show here on the Distant Thunder Radio Network. This is Mack Maloney. This is a very special show. We're here at the UFO Festival in Exeter, New Hampshire. We've got a great crowd here. People probably want to hear them.
I love that spontaneous applause.
That's right. We won't have to sweeten that up for once. Let me just introduce the members of the posse here, and then we're going to get into our theme tonight is 3 things that could end the world: AI, asteroids, or aliens, and/or aliens. But let me introduce the members of the posse. Beside me is Lois Lane. Lois, how are you tonight? Lois, we pretended to do the show.
That's right, we have to remember that. I'm really happy to be here, and we're really grateful to the Kiwanis Club for putting on this UFO festival here in Exeter, New Hampshire, and it's good to be here with everybody.
And to her left is Switchblade Steve Ward. Switchy, how you doing?
I am beyond wonderful and great to be here.
Okay. I don't know if you want to give him... Well, go ahead and just do it. So Switchblade. Please. Switch, everyone wants to know, what did you have for breakfast this morning?
Did you ask the breakfast question already?
Yes. Get out of the way.
Okay, for breakfast, I was kidnapped by Mack Maloney. I was taken to his humble abode on the veranda, and I was served fresh, hot black coffee, homemade donuts,
Lemon blueberry, by the way.
Created by Mrs. Maloney, blueberry donuts, and we were out on the veranda, and it was pretty nice.
I thought you had a $20 French toast today. Was that yesterday?
That was yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But we should also mention we had some honored guests with us at breakfast this morning. El Ronaldo, the UFO mechanic.
Well, he should stand up. Where is he?
And Mrs. Mechanic was there also. Now, absent, at least from the veranda, was Willie Clubb. Now, I suspect he was out cleaning the latrines or perhaps trimming that multi-level shrubbery.
Wow.
That's just a suspicion.
On the other end of the table is Willie Clubb, our security chief. Now, he's going to get mad if you don't put that up.
Thank you, Mac. It's great to be here again. I was here last year, and another great weather. I think exact temperatures as last year, so and it's good to see the crowds around, particularly walking around out there. There's a lot going on. I unfortunately was not invited to the veranda on Plum Island today, but that's why I'm at the end of the table. You know, I'm sort of an afterthought.
It's inappropriate.
But as the security chief, I understand that's my role. But anyways, it's great to be here, and particularly in front of a live audience. This is a great experience for us.
Also joining us is our good friend Juan, and he's over in England, and he's zooming in. Wani, where are you?
Hello, Mac. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show, live show. This is great. Exeter. I love Exeter. I love the town.
I usually
a lot of time there as a technician.
I usually warn the ladies in our audience that the very famous Juan is here. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Glad to be part of the UFO Festival this year. As I said, I love the Town of Exeter. I love everybody involved in the show. And I miss it. I wish I was there in person. Really.
Yeah.
Because I eat a lot of hot dogs.
It's been over in England for about a year. And also joining us is our favorite good witch up in Sideways, New York. Raven is with us. Raven?
She's not up there yet.
It's not up there yet. Okay. Oh, there she is.
There I am. Oh, God.
She talks.
Thank you so much for having me.
You look lovely, Raven.
Well, thank you so much.
When she talks, you see her, so.
Believe me, our show is like this. So anyway, our topic tonight is, as I said before, it's three things that could end the world: AI, aliens, or asteroids. So I'm going to throw it to Clubb first. He's going to talk about the dangers of asteroids. Clubb.
Thank you, Mac. This topic is pretty important to me. I've always been interested in the universe and asteroids and things like that since I was in junior high school, and I did my first science project that was on the universe. And a few years ago, I finally came back to it and said I'd like to take a look at asteroids. They're very interesting. There's so many of them out there. Wasn't doing it because of any threats that were posed, because if we listen to our government, they basically are saying that we've got about 600 or 700 years before we have to worry about a cataclysmic event. Unfortunately, as I was doing my research and study, I realized that they probably are not giving us the whole story. So my focus turned on more as to what the threat is to asteroids, when these things occur, how they occur, and what the government is doing, at least what they're telling us they're doing, to try to avert this thing. Now, if you look at the topics here, we're talking about asteroids, artificial intelligence, and UFOs, UAPs, extraterrestrials, as far as what the real threat is to Earth. However, the 500-pound elephant in the room is climate change. So my presentation is saying, aside from climate change, I consider the asteroid threat to the Earth to be the real threat, and much sooner than we are being told. So hopefully after I cover some of the facts and the details, you might agree with me. When I look at the other speakers here, we've got Switchblade Steve, who is an expert on different UFO areas, particularly what he considers to be threats. I don't consider those to be very strong arguments based on the facts that we have on UFOs. And that also goes the same with what Mack is going to talk about, which is the artificial intelligence. We know down the road there's a lot of concern, but we really don't know yet what regulation will be in effect and all of the things, the nasty things that could happen. So I'm going to talk about the real world and what we can touch right now as far as concerns. Now, the last thing is on the UFOs, extraterrestrials. We all grew up with sci-fi movies, and they were always the bad guys. Okay, whether it was Independence Day, War of the Worlds, but as we grew up in the last 60 or 70 years, we're used to them being a threat. But again, I'm looking for facts, and over 75 years since we had Roswell, we really haven't had any real threats where the aliens are coming down telling us they want to take over. No real signs of that. It's more our psyche that thinks so, and not a lot of facts. We'll hear some things today about that, but again, we want to base these things on what people are really involved in and what the facts are. So anyways, when we look today at aliens, I got to get that out of my mind, at asteroids, right now there are over 30,000 near-Earth asteroids, and most of them were discovered in the last century. According to a book written by, and we all would know, the late renowned physicist Stephen Hawking, in his final book that he wrote in 2018, which was entitled Brief Answers to Big Questions, he considered an asteroid collision to be the biggest threat to the Earth. And there's someone that is well renowned. So that got me thinking when I read that to look a little closer. Now, according to public statements from NASA, they talk about there's no known asteroid that poses a significant risk of impact with the Earth over the next 100 years. The key words in that statement are no known, insignificant. Unfortunately, it's believed that physicists and scientists have only found less than 50% of the objects known big enough to destroy the Earth or cause great harm. And we don't need a major-sized asteroid to cause great harm, as I'll discuss. Also, something you may not know, it's estimated that there's an average of 1,000 deaths worldwide annually from impacts of asteroids. 1,000 deaths a year. And I don't have a lot of detail on because I'm too involved in the other facts, but I've read that in different areas. So my research definitely shows that is something we ought to think about. Now, the government is putting a lot of funds into this research. And to me, where's the beef? When the government is spending all of the money that they've been spending over the last 10 years in resources, that gives you an idea that they know something that we don't know. And for example, last year, you may have heard of the NASA, the DART mission, which was a flight to an asteroid where they attempted to deflect by kinetic impact, which is striking it with a 1,260-pound bomb. And although it was relatively successful, it's only the first step in many other tests and developments that have to take place. In addition, the NEO, what NEO stands for Near Earth Objects, and the NEO Surveyor Satellite Telescope is going to have its first mission to look for near-Earth objects, NEOs, and that's scheduled to launch in 2028. In 2016, NASA's Planetary Defense Coordinating Office, known as the PDO, the government loves acronyms, working with other government agencies, which includes the U.S. Space Command and FEMA, is there to provide early detection and warning of potentially hazardous objects. Another major technology is the James Webb Telescope. I think you've all heard of that. That's out there exploring space for many things, including asteroids that we haven't seen yet. And lastly, there's ATLAS, and that's NASA's early warning impact system. It was developed by the University of Hawaii, and it's funded by NASA. It tracks asteroids and comets that will make relatively close approaches to Earth. And it consists of 4 telescopes around the world, and they scan the whole sky several times a night looking for moving objects. The detection is a very important thing. You can see by the resources that are going into this that they don't seem to be playing up as much as I feel they should. That there's something here. We need more transparency. The only problem is that's all toward detection. And so they are making great strides in detecting these objects, but unfortunately at present, the lead time is 5 to 10 years is necessary before the object that they find is projected to impact the Earth. They need 5 to 10 years to be able to deal with that. And right now, the only technology we have is the DART operation, which was successful on a small scale and did a slight movement of the asteroid. But to deal with what we're going to have to deal with over the years, that's where the efforts have to go. And again, there's a lot of funding there, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Our estimates, another area that concerns me, that they don't seem to be factoring in their time frames, is our gravity and atmosphere, which play a large part in protecting the Earth from asteroids and meteoroids, the smaller asteroids strikes. However, right now, we're looking at global climate change, which is expected to also affect those areas. So more than likely, the protection we're getting now from the atmosphere and the gravity is going to change. Now, whether it's going to be significant enough to block a lot of the threats that we now have is not yet known. But I'm sure the government's thinking about it, but no one's given us a heads up about these things. They just throw out that, don't worry about it, 600 or 700 years. And I just wanted to give you an example of things that have happened in the last 100 years that we should think about, not 600 years. Both of them occurred in Russia. One of them was over at the Chelyabinsk event, and excuse me if I don't pronounce it right, but anyways, that occurred only 10 years ago, and in 2013. And an asteroid which was only 20 meters in diameter, it entered the Earth's atmosphere and exploded in the air about 30 kilometers above the ground. But it caused no direct impact on the ground damage. However, it created a shock wave that injured 1,500 people and damaged 7,200 buildings across 6 cities. So that's something just 10 years ago, that if that hit in New York, you might see a lot more damage than some of these things. Fortunately, have been landing out in a sparsely settled area. Unfortunately, they're both in Russia, and I don't know why, but they'll probably blame us for that. But anyways, the other asteroid threat is, and I lost my place, but give me 1 second.
Tunguska.
Yeah, I got you. And I got
Tunguska.
Yeah, it's Tunguska, but I got to find it. Wait a minute. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, Tunguska. That occurred in 1908. And again, Tunguska is in a region of Siberia. Siberian region of Russia. And that caused devastation in the populated forest that was 1,000 times more powerful than the atom bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima in World War II. It was described as a fireball. It looked as bright as the sun that exploded mid-air, and it caused a 5-mile crater zone, and it flattened 80 million trees. 80 million trees, so over an area of 830 square miles. So you can see that something at that size happening within the last 100 years or so, if that ever happened over New York or London or any of the big cities, even over our areas, you can imagine what the devastation would be. So those are the things that are concerning me about, us being told by not only our government, but governments all over the world, don't worry about it, we're working on it, it's way down the road, we're all going to be long gone. But again, look at those 2 incidents within the last 100 or so years in Russia. And as I say, even the small, meteoroids now kill up to 1,000 people. So anyways, that's my argument that the whole issue of the asteroid threat is really should be at the top of our agenda. And the proof to me is, like I say, by the things that are happening now in our government, that they're not playing up a lot. We're hearing a lot about concerns about, visions of aliens and planes that we see, TikTok and all that, but nothing's ever harmed us, after all these years. So maybe they will someday. Obviously, the aliens haven't done anything to help us as far as re-engineering. We hear a lot about that, but there's no real proof that some of these developments that we've come up with over the years were given to us by friendly aliens. So they haven't really helped us, but on the other hand, the other concern is they haven't helped us to stop things that have happened in our world over the last 75 years. World wars, climate change, all of these things that they're not making a presence as far as I can see either way. So right now, I'm discounting the aliens that are here, that they're sort of out there, but maybe they're waiting for us just to blow ourselves up. I don't know. But I would think they'd be pretty helpful with us in helping with asteroid deflections and so on. So anyways, that's my argument as to why we should be very concerned, and we should question our elected representatives about these things, because they can be quite a threat. So hopefully I'm not too much of a downer, but I just wanted to tell you this is what I'm reading, and so.
It's funny, but when we take advantage of the audience here, the question we always ask on the show, we talk about asteroids a lot among other topics, is if the government knew an asteroid was going to hit, would they tell us? Okay? I just want to show of hands. Who do you think, how many people here think that the government would level with us and say an asteroid's going to hit in a year? Oh my God.
Not one hand.
Not one person raised their hand.
It's the same answer would probably be about the alien situation, where they tell us if we've had contact with aliens and they've been meeting with the leaders of the world. The government's afraid. There might be panic.
Right.
And we can only speak for ourselves. I don't know. If they told me the aliens were here, I'd like to meet them. I think if they haven't done us any harm now, hey, let's get together. But the asteroid thing, that's a different problem altogether.
Well,
Let me ask the other half of that question. How many people here think that the government would withhold that information from us if an asteroid is going to hit us within a year, let's say?
Okay.
Oh, Jesus.
So that's everybody.
Okay, that's not good. Everybody. Okay, well.
Yeah, they blame it on climate change. Yeah,
no.
Everything gets blamed on that, right?
Well, thank you, Club. We appreciate that. So that's his argument for asteroids probably going to end the world. At the end of this, we're going to take a vote and see, which one seems to be the most dangerous. But the one I'm going to do now is artificial intelligence, AI. And, I knew just about as much about it as maybe you did. You hear it in the news, you hear it in the media, not really sure what it is. So I did a little bit of research in it. And the basic definition of it is that AI is the ability of machines to perform tasks typically associated with human intelligence, things like learning and problem solving and so on. It's computer hardware. That's really all it is. And it's essentially, it can think for itself, but not in the way that we think. It cannot yet create its own thoughts. Basically what it is just the accumulation of all the knowledge out there. And when you ask it a question like a chatbot or something, it formulates an answer that you think is the answer you want to hear. But it's not necessarily the correct answer as it turns out. Now, obviously, some of the benefits are it's going to, minimize human error. It's going to, it will take over these jobs that are basically repetitive tasks, like in auto manufacturing, things like that. Everything from getting you out of traffic jams to pre-writing your grocery list. This is what's coming. It's going to be as common as maybe an Alexa or Siri is in our homes these days. But the problem is that it's going to have a huge effect on our society. And like some of the negative effects is, for instance, an AI robot, and robots are coming very soon. They don't need sick days, they don't need days off, they don't need to be paid, they don't need promotions, they don't need bathroom breaks, so on and so forth. So what's going to happen is these AI robots and AI itself is going to put a lot of people out of work. Just for instance, in 2019, 11,000 people in the country lost their jobs in the retail sector because of self-checkout. That's just the beginning of this. Everything we do is going to have some kind of an AI theme to it. So if you can imagine 11,000 people losing their jobs in 1 year just because of self-checkout, can you imagine what that's going to be like when it really hits 1,000-fold or 1,000,000-fold? And the one big problem of AI is that it's probably going to create worldwide unemployment on the scale of hundreds of millions. However, because on our show we do a lot of
So if you listen to the show at all, one of the features is a top 10 list, and usually it's sort of funny. This one, because of the nature of the talk overall, it's a little bit more dark. So this is going to be the top 10 nightmare AI scenarios. So we're going to think.
Can I just interrupt you?
Sure.
If you ever heard our show, you'll know that Mack does a great job on his top 10s, which I hate. I have a real problem with them. But I didn't get a chance to tell Mack, but Mack, I have a solution to make your top 10 a much better listening thing.
Okay, this is unscripted. Go ahead.
I'll make it the top 5.
Top 5? Okay. Better than half. Okay. Okay, so anyway, top 10 nightmare scenarios concerning AI. And I suppose we should start the music, who knows, okay? So, but these are real. So the top 10 thing that people are concerned about with AI is that it can get into the political field, where someone who's running for office, national office, their campaign can put together a deep fake video of their opponent saying something inappropriate, doing something inappropriate, and then release that to the world. Now, not everyone's going to believe it, but a lot of people are going to believe it. And what the problem is when you do things like this, it results in no one knowing what to believe. We don't know what the truth is anymore, and AI is just going to, add to that. Number 9, AI takes an enormous amount of energy. They have these places that I'm assuming Google or somebody has them where that's all they do is artificial intelligence. And some of these places use as much energy in one day as a typical household in the United States uses in a year. Now, let's face it, our air and the water is already polluted, mostly from creating energy. Where's all this energy going to come from? And they're going to need a lot of it. Number 8, law enforcement. Now, this is a tricky one because we all know that the vast majority of law enforcement officers and officials are honest, but some of them aren't. And AI would make it almost easy to fake evidence, to fake records, to fake falsify records, and even spy on people who they suspect of maybe wanting to commit a crime. If you remember the movie Minority Report, that's what it's about. They're actually using artificial intelligence to zero in on individuals who are thinking of committing a crime, and they arrest them before the crime is committed. That was a science fiction story. We're getting very close to something like that. Number 7, hallucinations. This was new to me. In the artificial intelligence world, hallucinations are when you ask AI a question and it gives you a reply that looks correct, it looks right, but it's absolutely wrong. But it looks right, so you believe it. The thing about AI, it's not infallible. It makes mistakes, just like any computer glitch or whatever. And when it makes mistakes, it usually makes really big ones. So, for instance, someone gave this as an example. If for some reason AI was attached to a suicide hotline and they gave the wrong information to somebody, that's going to end tragically. The unusual thing is that they're not sure why. Sometimes AI is right, and sometimes it makes these horrendous mistakes. When it makes the horrendous mistakes, they're called hallucinations. Number 6. Oh boy, this is the one Club will enjoy this. It would be very, very easy for AI people, bad actors who are able to control AI to crash the stock market. And all they would have to do is put out a hallucination telling people the example that I read was telling everyone who owns Kellogg's cereal stock to sell it immediately. And then all of a sudden, General Mills is the one and only cereal company. Now, that's kind of benign. Imagine that if it was some kind of a military contractor or something like that. It would be very easy to do because even if all those people don't sell their Kellogg stock, the fact that it happened, and some people did, was just put this uneasiness into the stock market. The stock market is very emotional. And if people think that, it's not the place to put your money, they're going to take their money out and the whole thing is going to crash. Okay, number 5. Oh, this is interesting. It's going to make maybe the internet irrelevant, and it's going to make search engines irrelevant. Because what happens is when you go to search something on an AI-assisted Google, let's say, if we do it now, we go on Google, they'll send us to a website, they'll give us a link or something. In AI, they go right through that, and they bring the answer right to you. So what happens is, after a while, people are going to stop going to websites. Those websites will lose their income stream. They'll fade away. The small ones will go first, but it will go all the way up to Facebook and the works, because there'll be no incentive for them to put this stuff on, because everyone is just going to AI. And that whole idea of, maybe social media or whatever, part of it is definitely going to crash, if not all of it. Okay, and here's another thing. Number 4, random parrots. Now, this one's a little complex, but basically what happens is that you'll have some kind of information that the AI has put out, and it's incorrect. But what happens is people will download it, work with it, whatever, and that text always stays on the internet. And the more incorrect text information on the internet, it just builds up and builds up and builds up. And once again, no one, you won't be able to tell pretty soon what's real and what isn't. And they say that this will get to the point where all this misinformation will just clog up the internet, and for you to search for something that might take a few seconds now could take hours, or as this researcher said, could go into infinity. So that's random parrots, and basically what they're saying is they're parroting the wrong information over and over and over again. Number 3 is the smart house. Smart houses are coming, but there's going to be a camera in every corner. They're going to know everything you're doing. Like in
1984.
It's like 1984. We have an Alexa, and we might say something about buying a new
couch,
and the next thing you know, you're getting ads for couches, right? That's going to be our lives in 10 to 15 years. Every aspect of it. They're going to know what we're doing. They're going to know what we want, and they're going to try to sell it to us. So because we're a military show, though, the top two and the first really nightmare scenario has to do with the military. This one's a little more tactical. In a very short time, within a few years, the U.S. is going to start building something called the XQ-58 Valkyrie drone. And what this is, if you're familiar with an F-35 fighter, it's about a half-size version of an F-35 fighter with no pilot. And what they're going to do is they're going to take off in swarms with a fighter pilot, one-man jet fighter pilot, kind of heading the swarm. But then they're going to get to a point where they're going to go off and do their own missions. And that's when the AI is going to take over. And they're going to do things that jet fighters do, fight other jets, bomb places, and so on, but they're also going to program them to do suicide missions. So in the Ukraine now, they're using drones that cost about, $10, and it's a suicide mission. The U.S. is going to start using $5 million drones on suicide missions. And the problem here is that what you have is you have robots killing people, and that's really never happened before. But that's the future of warfare, and that's a genie that is never going to go back in the bottle, because we're working on it, our adversaries are working on it, and that's something that's going to be very hard to control. We talked about Isaac Asimov, the famous science fiction writer. Years ago, he gave the rules on how science fiction writers should have robots interact with humans in their books. And he says, and the number one thing is that robots should never harm humans.
And then number two is they should protect, and the third one is that they should never go against Law 1 and Law 2. Mm-hmm. So it's all about not being against humans, and you're saying that...
And it's completely changed. It's strange, but when you have robots doing this, when you have AI doing this, you're actually taking the empathy of the soldier or the pilot out of the equation. I suppose at some point he could turn back. At some point he could see this target is really a hospital or something, That all goes away when we start having machines kill humans. As someone said, it's like outsourcing death, Not a good situation. The number one thing that people are worried about AI when it comes to the military, though, is what they call international deep fakes. And this is kind of the same thing as the political one. You have an adversary you have two countries are at war, and one of the adversaries through AI creates a video where the leader of the country is telling the population and the army to surrender. What happens then? Some people will believe him, some people won't, but the confusion that it will sow, and once again, it's a genie you can't put back in the bottle. Now, as scary as that sounds, it's already happened, because the Russians did it to the Ukrainians early in the war, where they made a fake video of President Zelensky telling the population and the army to surrender. And luckily, they were able to intercept this fake video before it got widespread, broadcast widespread. But it can be done, and it looks like it's going to, it's almost impossible for it not to be done again. What's going to happen when they start sending incorrect orders to generals or calling back nuclear missiles or things like that? And what it's going to do is sow confusion. Not everyone's going to believe it, but some people will. You won't know what to believe. And for misinformation and misdirection and things like that, AI is really is a nightmare. Now, the only thing is, when I was doing the research on this, I was thinking, wow, this is really bad. But we had a guest on our show a couple weeks ago, he's a designer of video games. He uses artificial intelligence in designing video games. In fact, he helped design the new Spider-Man video game that's coming out in October. His name is Greg Masto. But what he told us is that, number one, the thing you have to always remember is that whatever goes into AI, humans put it in there. We're responsible for the data that it is using to go out and do all these things. So there's kind of like a personal responsibility on the part of our politicians, our leaders, big business, you name it, to use this correctly. Now, when you think of it, we should take a poll. Who do you think that they're going to use AI responsibly? Politicians, big business, military? I don't believe it. But there is an instance where this has happened, and it goes back to this. The last A-bomb, the last nuclear bomb was dropped in 1945. Okay, so that's 88 years ago. We've been living with the bomb for 88 years. That's almost 100 years of not nuclear war, but nuclear peace, because everybody knows, no matter, if you're a dictator or whatever, everyone knows if there's a nuclear war, we could all be gone. So there's a little bit of that personal responsibility, even if you're a crackpot, to know this is a step not to take. Well, it's going to be the same thing with AI. You have to be responsible in how it's used. There's many, many benefits. There's no doubt about it. But the chances of it going sideways are really, 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 really good. So I'm saying now, I believe in the asteroid threat, but I think that AI is going to kind of permeate our lives, and it's never going to get out of our pants, if you know what I mean, And so I think that's the bigger problem facing the planet. And asteroids are 1A or 1B.
Hey, Mac, can I just take a second for a brief rebuttal?
Can Lois put up the applause sign for us?
Can we have applause for the top 10? Even though it was very sad news.
Go ahead, Club.
Anyways, first of all, I fear AI because it's an unknown, but the number one word that we should think about today is this is all speculation as to what the capabilities of AI is going to have. It's very complex. From everything I've heard, it's going to take years and years to develop some of these things that Mack is talking about. And to compare the threat of the speculation of what's going to happen to what we know now with asteroids is sitting right up there. We've seen them threaten us. Definitely, we've got to be concerned, but I have a little more confidence that, there'll be things happening. There'll be more controls. There'll be some regulation. You hear that word all the time. That's an issue we don't have with the asteroid deflections. We have nothing we can stop, okay? Right now, we don't have anything. So we got controls if we believe in our fellow men that hopefully they'll develop a lot to stop that. Talking about the stock market, that's what I did when I was, before I retired. This has been happening for years. The stock market has been corrupted, hacked. On the internet, words have gone out to people, sell your IBM because the company's going down the tube today. So that's nothing new. What's going to happen now if all these things come about? Sure, maybe more people will get those kind of messages through AI, but that's nothing new. And the same thing with the military. Today, and we've had for years, drones. Right? It's basically the same concept, okay? And these vehicles now they've developed to drive themselves, so robotics, nothing new. But again, I agree with Mack that it's definitely a concern for the future. But if you're trying to say that that should be our number one concern today, it doesn't hold water.
Wow, holy cow. Hang on a second.
So I hate to question you, Mack, because I know you've done a lot of work on this, but that's how I feel, and my argument, I still say stands as far as today's real threat. Let's not be too worried about the speculation. Let's give everyone a chance to start developing these things. So when we start losing jobs, like they said years ago with technology, but then we get new jobs. So who knows? I'm no scientist, but that's all I'm saying in rebuttal to his comments.
Welcome to Club's Military X-Files.
Yeah, really.
I've only known this gentleman through Zoom all this time, and up till today, until I met him, I thought he was AI, and that's why AI
Maybe a robot
frightens me to death.
Wow. Well, thank you, Club. I think.
I have something to add, if you don't mind.
Please, Raven.
It's me. I don't know if you guys know this. I actually am a scientist, so I'm speaking based on fact. You mentioned Smart House. Now, I just want everyone to know, in case you need more information regarding how smart houses can eventually take over, there is a Disney Channel original movie called Smart House. And Katie Sagal is in it from Married with Children. And she took over everything in that movie because she was AI. So I just want everyone to know, for the facts, this is coming from a scientist, myself. I'm 100% certified as a scientist. I have a diploma from www.scientist.com. And that's a real thing.
Yeah. Juan, do you want to weigh in on Club stabbing me in the back? I guess not, he's not. Yep. Why don't we go to Switch then? Switch is going to talk about aliens.
Is that okay, Club?
I love it. I can't wait.
I want to talk about the others amongst us. At least that's what Albert Rosales called them. Albert Rosales has amassed an incredible database, and he put much of it in 15 books so far that goes from 01 AD to 2015. And these deal with, you call them aliens, crypto-terrestrials, ultra-terrestrials, extra-dimensionals. We don't really know completely what we're dealing with. Dr. J. Allen Hynek, he used to be attached to Project Blue Book years ago. And he, when he was attached to the Project Blue Book, he had to sort of debunk some of the sightings that were going on, even though as an astronomer, he had been a skeptic, but he began to believe a lot of the reports that people were giving. He's the one that made, under the infamous term swamp gas back in '66. But later on, he was separated from the U.S. Air Force, started his own group called the Center for UFO Studies. He wrote a book called The UFO Experience, and that's where we first get the close encounter categories. Everybody's familiar with the term close encounters of the third kind. Well, that dealt with, very simply, the landing of a craft, the sighting of a UFO, but seen in conjunction with some kind of an entity, whether it was inside the craft or departed the craft. There's a lot to this. They're not, we used to have some pretty cool aliens, or whatever you want to call them, back in the old days, before the Greys came in and took over. I never liked the Greys because we had the Flatwoods Monster, we had the Cisco Grove aliens, we had the Kelly Hopkinsville goblins. Well, Jacques Vallée, who started out as a strict proponent of the extraterrestrial hypothesis, began to soften on that a little bit. He wrote a book called Passport to Magonia, where he recognized, he looked in old traditions of folklore and saw parallels with some modern-day UFO experiences. For example, we're very familiar with missing time. Well, missing time is something that occurred with the elementals, with the little people. People would have an encounter with them. They would lose time, sometimes a full day. Sometimes they would be whisked away or abducted to not maybe a spaceship, but a cavern or some other realm before they came back. There were other parallels. Actually, if you look at some of the descriptions of the say leprechauns, the fairies, or whatever, if you traded their little green tunics and red caps for a silver suit, they would look very much like some of the entities that we used to be dealing with. Back in the 50s and 60s, we had a couple competing UFO organizations. The National Investigation Committee on Aerial Phenomena, headed by Dr. Donald E. Kehoe, he would write about UFOs all day, but they were very, very kind of skittish about talking about the pilots, who's driving these things. Jim and Coral Lorenzen, who ran the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization, did breach this subject, which was kind of taboo back then. They wrote books like UFO Occupants, and they talked about a lot of these bizarre encounters that took place. Actually, John Keel, who wrote the Mothman Prophecies, he was one of the ones that broached this subject early. He wrote an article in True magazine, which the title was, "Never Mind the Saucer, Did You See the Guys Who Were Driving?" The publisher of the magazine, a few weeks later after this article was published, and not too many people were talking about this kind of thing. You might have had the Benny at Barney Hill experience, but that was kind of a lone experience at the time. The publisher asked him in, and he showed him 6 bags of mail, 6 of these huge post office bags of mail of responses from people that claimed to have some kind of an experience with an entity. One thing that Jacques Vallée noticed, that it seemed like the landings, the entities, behaved differently in different cultures. Perhaps it was our response to them, or maybe something different was going on. For example, there were a couple waves in France in the 50s. The entities were about 3 or 4 feet tall, wore silver suits. They were very chilled out aliens. They would kind of land out of and step out of their egg-shaped objects and kind of observe the scene and then take off. You had, for a period of time in the U.S., you had almost like science fiction monsters, like something out of the 50s. You had the Flatwoods Monster, which was this tall monstrosity seen in Flatwoods, West Virginia in 1952. The Kelly Hopkinsville Goblins in the mid-50s. The Kelly family was shooting at them through walls and windows. They would take a bullet and then roll over and then run off. The majestic airships that were seen in the late 1800s. The gentlemen that stepped out of there seemed like farmers and rugged Americans. But there was a kind of a distinction, and we're going to get into more of that later. In South America, there were many attacks by these humanoids, by these entities or whatever they were. There was one famous one where it was Caracas, Venezuela, G. Gonzalez and Jose Ponce. They saw this luminous sphere land. They were truck drivers. They got out, and these creatures, these hairy little short creatures with long claws, attacked them, and they had to be hospitalized. Now, as an aside, in more recent years, Jacques Vallée got some information suggesting that some of these early reports may have been plants by the CIA. There's no way to verify that, so we have to always keep these things in balance and not be dogmatic about what we believe. Back a little more to the folklore connection. There was something that was called elf disease, kind of a strange dermatological condition that if you were in close proximity with the elementals. Well, there was a wave of landings in Dyfed, Wales in 1977. There were small creatures about 3 feet tall that frankly looked like leprechauns. They had curved noses and slanted eyebrows, but they were connected with the same metallic objects that these 9-foot giants were connected with. The people said they looked like these guys were wearing boiler suits. Some people that had close proximity with these entities also contracted some kind of a strange dermatological condition. No way, of course, to make a direct connection, but interesting nonetheless. A man named Ahmad Jamaluddin, who I don't know much about, but he has contributed articles for decades to a great publication called Flying Saucer Review. It started in 1955 in Britain and was had journalistic qualities. John Keel wrote for it. It had great editors like Gordon Crichton. He wrote a book some years ago called Analysis of Global Humanoid Encounter Reports, 1946 to 2006. And he used the Albert Rosales database, this amazing database of these encounters with the others among us, whatever their origin might be. Found out some very interesting things. He found certain patterns that seemed to show up. For example, when there's a series of humanoid reports, now of course they're not happening all the time, but when there's an outbreak, so to speak, at a certain continent or country, there are certain times of the day where it's very unlikely you're going to encounter some of these things. 12 noon is one. Forget about it. You want to see an alien? Forget 12 noon. But 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. is when these reports seem to take place. Now here's the interesting thing. These reports take place at the same time period, or peak in the same time periods, in every single time zone, suggesting that whatever's going on, the point of manifestation or entry is fixed as the globe turns. Now, what would explain that? One side thing you can determine is that if that's true, then it's unlikely people are lying or hallucinating. I don't think people lie and hallucinate at certain points as the globe turns. There's another thing he found out. He called them humanoid migrations. there seems to be an outbreak or a manifestation of humanoid encounters in, say, somewhere in South America. Now, it's impossible at this point to determine where that would be. But then a few years later, they would show up in somewhere in the North American continent, the U.S. or Canada. And then it would go across to perhaps the UK or the European continent, and then Malaysia or Asia, and then come around again. These cycles occurred about every 8 to 10 years, and there have been about 4 or 5 of them. Again, how do we process this? How do we determine what is really going on? And now we get into the really, really weird stuff. While most encounters are relatively benign, now some people have these experiences where they get these unscheduled medical exams with no deductible and no copay, right? Not even any good prescriptions either. And some of them have not been they've been memorable, but not in a good way. Most of the encounters are, while they might be uncomfortable, are not real negative. But Bob Pratt, who was a reporter, between 1978 and 1973, he made it over 10 trips to Brazil. He was following the story. They talked to many, many individuals. Now, a lot of these people were farmers, people not exposed to a lot of media. They might know what a flying saucer is, but they're not overburdened with all the pop culture stuff. And there's certain patterns. That's one thing I've always been interested in, are patterns and parallels. These people would be essentially attacked, and they had names for these lights, these craft that would come after them. It would be called the light or the fire, the animal, the thing or the train or the apparatus. And they called it the chupa. That means to suck. And in the context where they're talking about vampirism, a lot of these people believed that the attack actually took blood from them, literally blood or some kind of energy sap. For example, and this is one of the sources here, UFO Danger Zone by Bob Pratt. And the thing is, so many of these people that were interviewed don't know each other, different parts of the country. Brazil's a huge country. And again, a lot of these patterns keep showing up. May 1991, on a Sunday, Moses Campello, he leaves his brother's house. It's dark, there's light rain. He sees a flash on a nearby mountain, and then all of a sudden, it's over him. It's very close. And the light, and oftentimes the light is so bright, people can't determine where it's actually coming from. They can't see the craft, if it's a metallic craft or whatever. The light's very hot. He's unable to call for help. This thing starts to pull him up like a tractor beam, and he's suspended for about 5 minutes. And then it lets him down. He hits the ground. He's dizzy. He's dragging himself toward his house. It passes over him again and picks him up. This time he believes he's been held up for about 15 minutes. In the end, it lets him go again. In the aftermath, he has he's numb on one side for about 6 months, and he was blind in his left eye for a period of time. Many of these attacks end up in some kind of a physical ailment. Januncio de Souza, January 1979. He's actually was one of the major landowners in the area, and he's coming back from a friend's house, and all of a sudden this light is over him, and it's just the bottom of it is just a short distance up. It's about, he says it looks like a big silo with a rounded bottom, about 25 to 15 feet in diameter. And he sees there's a hole in the bottom. And when he looks up, he sees what looks like a man and a woman sitting in seats like a car. And they were very still. And he's being pulled upwards like a magnet. Again, we would say a tractor beam, I guess. And he was absolutely terrified. and he grabbed onto a small palm tree. Now, this thing is pulling him up. He's pulling himself back down. This goes back and forth about 5 times. And then, this is something that shows up in several of these cases, again, people that don't know each other. They drop some kind of a hot oil or liquid on him, burning his arms, apparently hoping that he's going to let go so they can pull him up and do God knows what. But he persisted, and finally they just went away. He was sick for 2 days afterwards. Many times people would be afraid to go out. People would not go out in the night again ever. There were a lot of fishermen that were afraid, that were attacked by these lights, and they would stop fishing at night, which really hurt the food source for a while in some areas. A man named Beato in 1979, he lived in the same general area. The same kind of a thing. Some kind of a craft comes over him. It's so bright he can't really determine what the whole thing looks like, but there's a hole in the bottom. He sees 3, in quotes, people, 2 men and a woman. So he's being pulled up. He grabs onto a bush, and they pour scalding liquid on him, but he persists. I wonder how many of these we don't hear what happens because they're just gone. September 9th, 1976, Hermelito, walking home, bright light above, something hits his shoulder. Now, this is a bizarre one. Not that the others weren't bizarre. Something hits his shoulder and knocks him down. And then 4 cables come down all around him with hooks on them. And they're moving around. It looks like they're trying to catch him. And then a small creature slid down one of these hooks. It's about 3 feet tall. It's wearing some kind of a suit. He can't see the face because of the covering on it. So this thing is trying to hook him with this. So he grabs it. He's a big guy. He grabs it and gives this thing a big bear hug. Well, I guess it shivers or something. It freaks him out. He lets it go, and it very quickly puts one of these hooks on his left ankle, and it starts to pull him up. So I wonder, was there a tractor beam on the fritz that week or what? Interesting that a lot of the entities that are reported some of them look very human, some look very different. Just like, I would have thought that since some of these incidents are very similar, that perhaps we'd be seeing more of the same type of entity, but there seems to be the same variety that we get everywhere else, which is another mystery in itself. A woman named Claudia Mira, September 1978, 11 p.m. She's trying to sleep. A green light comes through her window, crosses her face. She looks up and she sees a humanoid of some kind. She can only see this thing from the waist up. It's wearing some kind of, she calls it a diving suit. It has something like a pistol or something in its hand, aims at her, and hits her in the chest with it with some kind of a light or beam. It's very hot. It burns. Her belief was that it was taking her blood. Now, many others had similar experiences, and the belief in these things taking blood was prevalent. And she was paralyzed while this was happening. Afterwards, she had headaches and was ill for many weeks. Now, one place where UFOs had been the deadliest was a place called Colaris. UFOs would, now this doesn't make any, this doesn't make any rational sense. If we see the abduction experience as maybe having some kind of a end game or end result, maybe we don't understand the motivations of the aliens. Jacques Vallée called it metalogic, where, their logic, their ideas, their goals are just so far different than ours, beyond ours, that we don't understand. But these beams would shoot down. They could go through rooftops without any problem at all. Sometimes people would see them moving around in the house like they were searching for something. And if they hit somebody, they were burned. And the burn would be very painful and would last for some time. This started started in July 1977. A young lady doctor who was 24 treated many of these victims. Roalde Cesum Carvello. In 1977, she had 40 people come to her, mostly chest burns. The interesting thing was the skin would peel, it would heal fairly rapidly. And at first, she thought, the first few, she thought this was some kind of a put-on, that people weren't really encountering beams from the sky. But after dozens of these people, she knew something very, very strange was going on. She did tests and revealed there was low hemoglobin in a lot of these people. Well, it's very hard to know what to make of this. This is really quite an aberration. But Pratt and another woman named Cynthia Lucy did a lot of investigating in this area and found that hundreds and hundreds of people had had negative encounters or some kind of attack by these entities or whatever they might be. And really a kind of, we go from the early days of the people saying they were in contact with the Venusians, George Adamski, the beautiful Space Brothers. Of course, as we got to know more about the solar system, they stopped saying they were from Mars and Venus. They were coming from other places. But you contrast the more benign approach with whatever is still going on in Brazil in some of these areas, and it really kind of throws another wrench in the work to try and understand what's going on. Just in closing, I'm a follower of John Keel, and Keel looked at these things not as so much in a physical context, but thought something else might be going on. He thought these things might be a natural condition of the planet, but it's very hard to figure out what's going on. I think of these things, I call it the Red Queen effect. Remember the Red Queen from Alice in Wonderland? She tells Alice, if you're going to get anywhere, you got to run faster and faster. Well, Alice runs as fast as she can, and the trees are staying in the same place. That's the way I feel sometimes when trying to decipher some of these mysteries, being as objective as we can, listening to the experiencer and so forth, and then finding these interesting patterns and parallels that show up. So, thank you.
Thank you, Switch. We're just going to take a quick break. I mean, like a 30-second break.
Mac, can I just take a quick 30 seconds for the break to be obnoxious for the last time? However, all I want to say is you did a great presentation. However, where's the beef? Where's the craft up there with weapons aimed at us? So it doesn't hold much water. And lastly, my Irish family will be offended by the reference of leprechauns as space aliens, but I understand you're really not that clear on that.
They're going to get you, Club.
Is it community? Okay, thank you, Club. I just want to ask you real quick. So what's the scenario of people on Earth being like the Native Americans when Columbus shows up, I mean, it ruins their whole civilization, changed it. What are the chances the aliens are going to do that to us, would you say, Switch? I mean, is people seeing these things, are they just a pre-invasion stuff, do you think? Do you think it will ever happen? Your opinion?
You mean the way that it has evolved over the decades?
Yeah, do you think it's just leading up to something bigger and more dangerous?
I don't know. It seems to like it's almost a status quo. These things have been with us since we have been here. Again, you have Albert Rosales chronicling these other beings, whatever they are, all the way back to 1 AD, and I'm sure before. It's like and every country, every tradition has some kind of a sort of a, leprechaun-like race, or the fairies that in the part of their tradition. They call them the Moon-eyed people in West Virginia back in the early Americas. I don't know that it's leading up to anything. I think it's just always been with us and will always exist or manifest in a particular way. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. Sometimes I don't know why we keep trying to figure it out, because the answers seem to be so elusive.
Yeah, right. Let's take that quick break right now, and we'll be right back. You're listening to Mack Maloney's Military X-Files show here on the Distant Thunder Radio Network. Special broadcast tonight, broadcasting live from the Exeter, New Hampshire UFO Festival. We'll be right back. Wrapping up. Here we go. All right, ready?
Yep.
Welcome back everyone to Mack Maloney's Military X-Files show here on the Distant Thunder Radio Network. We're wrapping up a special live presentation from the UFO Festival in Exeter, New Hampshire. I just want to throw it to Juan real quick, if he's up there. Of the three, what do you think is the biggest threat to civilization? AI, aliens, or asteroids?
Well, I always think asteroids because it's the most visible and you can kind of wrap your arms around it. We have the DART program that is knocking asteroids out of their trajectory, you know, like hitting a ball on a pool table. Okay, boom, boom, 10 ball in the corner pocket, boom, there goes that asteroid, no problem. I thought I read about the Torino scale or something. Charting how many asteroids were visiting the area within 186,000 miles. In other words, as close as the moon. And they said 95% of them are further away. 5% are maybe a little bit closer, but as far as near misses are concerned, there's only been like 50 this year so far, as opposed to 127 last year.
Okay, you vote asteroids. Then, Raven, what do you think of the three?
It's AI for me. They don't have the capacity to, heal, so they're not going to care if they wipe us out.
I think we'll just take a quick one. I think it's AI. I'm sorry. It's going to be something that's going to be in our lives. We're never going to get rid of it.
As scary as...
Oh, go ahead, Bonnie. You got 2 minutes.
I think AI is a close second.
Okay, go.
As scary as asteroids seem and as very real.
I don't know if you hear it too well, but I think AI is a close second because...
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
Okay. Go ahead, Lois.
Asteroids seem very real and very scary, and there's so much facts backing that up, but AI seems to be the threat to me because you're seeing it playing out in such exponential time. We just started hearing about it, let's say 6 months ago on a real basis, and now it's just already so pervasive. So AI.
Switch. What's the biggest threat?
AI. We're not going to get hit by an asteroid for the next 2 billion years.
Just keep your eyes open.
Make it 3 billion.
Wow.
But seriously, AI, it just seems that already there's a lot of mischief being done with it. It has a terrible potential. As far as aliens go, just stay out of Brazil at night, and if they try to abduct you here, tell them you've already been examined.
Oh, really? And I don't have to ask you, Club, what do you think? Asteroids, right?
Well, yeah, you've had enough of me, I think.
So before we end the show, let's just take a quick poll.
Show of the hands.
Let's start with aliens. What do you think is the biggest threat to human existence, human civilization? Aliens? No one?
Okay.
Asteroids?
Ooh, okay, we have a few, maybe
AI?
a third.
AI? Okay. Everyone, AI. Wow, that's crazy.
2/3, so you win.
I guess we should wrap it up on that.
You need to win.
Ask about aliens, just for the hell of it.
I asked about aliens. No one raised their
Nobody
hand.
raised their hand at all. Sorry.
That's all right. That's all right.
Not even you.
Sorry, Switch.
So we just want to thank everyone for joining us for the conference and for the show. Listen to us. We're on every podcast you can imagine. We're also on the radio, on a number of radio networks, including Armed Forces Radio. Best thing to do is just to Google us, Mack Maloney's Military X-Files show. And thanks for joining us. We hope you'll join us again sometime.
We have to give a special thank you
To Peter Robbins. Thank you, Brother Peter,
for inviting us and including us again.
I also have to do one plug we do on the show is for Homes for Our Troops. Homes for Our Troops is an organization that builds homes for our veterans that were injured in post 9/11 combat. Most of these folks came back with missing a limb or whatever. So Homes for Our Troops builds homes that are adapted to that, meaning not a lot of stairs, low counter space, things like that. And then when they build them the house, they rip up the mortgage, they give them the keys. It's their house forever. They don't have to worry about that mortgage payment hanging over their head all the time. And they were able to go out and, let's say, rejoin society. Homes for Our Troops, 90 cents of your dollar goes to building these kinds of homes for our veterans. So just please Google them and see what they're about. And also, once again, thanks to the Kiwanis Club for having us here and the charities that they support. I got a list today, and it's a page long. So thank you to them, and thank you to yourselves. Give yourselves
great audience.
We'll see you next year, I hope.